welcome to another episode of Sound Connections. Thanks for tuning in and listening, or watching if you're on YouTube. And today we got Nick Nanton with us, a guy I've known, I guess. We've met like 24-ish years ago. I was doing some math earlier, which is crazy, and so much has changed since then. And so, you know, normally, like I said a minute ago before we got started, normally I would just have all this memorized, but you're a director, producer with DNA Films US, created over 60 films, and a sold-out Broadway show, 22-time Emmy Award winner, unless you've won any more since.
No, none since then.
And you've worked with people like Larry King and Rudy
Ruettiger. Yep.
Ruettiger, and Peter Diamandis.
Yep.
Songwriter, received 3 gold records. Songs have been featured on Glee, New Girl, House, and others. And then you're a host of a podcast. You're a host of the Now to Next podcast with Nick Nanton.
Yep.
CEO of a celebrity branding agency and senior partner with Dixon Nanton PA.
There you go.
You know, I mean, I thought I was busy, but seriously, when do you sleep, man?
I sleep great, man. It's, you know, I've learned, it's something I've always known, but I feel like even more recently, like I've been reintroduced to the fact that just having great people on your team changes everything, you know?
Yeah.
And it's so simple you forget it sometimes, but I always have to remind myself even if I was the best in the world at one thing, even if I was, I'm not sure I am, by the way, like that's a really big claim, like the best in the world at this, like let's just say you focused and you were that good at that. Well, basically you could very easily admit that you're not the best in the world at everything else, and you're probably really bad at some things. And when you just hire somebody or partner with somebody who's great at it, like your life changes. Like, so my agency runs now, I've got a great staff. I mean, I do a couple hours of meetings a week with them, but they're better than me. So like, I'm glad to give them advice when they think they need it from me, but they're just better than me. They just do what I do better than I can do, even if I was there. So it allows me to get a lot of things done.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So, well, it'll be interesting to see how you got there, because, you know, I'm in that position too, but with just one company. Well, sort of. I guess I've got a couple more, but yeah, I did. And I think in the back of my mind, I've always known that or learned that probably a while back, but it is hard. You got to remind yourself often.
Yes.
So, so, you know, we met 24 years ago. So through your cousin Shane.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
So how's he doing?
He's doing great, man. He's got a PhD in, I believe, human factors psychology. He's a brilliant dude, and honestly, to this day, I would tell anybody, one of the best guitar players I've ever seen in my entire life.
Still playing guitar?
Oh my god! I mean, like it was funny when I was in college. Like he would always hit me up like, man, you should check out this gear. You should check out this gear. And I was working with bands that were starting to do pretty well. So I would call everybody, man. And I that's one of the reasons I ended up meeting you. Like I would get like Dr. Z amps would hook us up with some stuff and full tone pedals. And like, he was like the guy who was like in the forums learning about the best gear, Fralin pickups, like all this stuff. And so, yeah, still see Shane, you know, multiple times a year. We all live here in the Orlando area, a lot of family here. And he's just an insane guitar player.
Yeah. So, and I think when we met, you kind of just made reference, but it was music first. So, so that's a question for later, but I'll just cover it now. But what came first? The music, the law, the films? Yeah. Like where was your passion back then? Very
simple answers. I started playing guitar at 6 because my cousin, my uncle and stuff played, and I saw and I fell in love with it. To this day I have probably an unhealthy relationship with music. Like my wife's like, can we just listen to something I've heard before? Because like I'm always looking for what's next, right? And so I started playing at 6, started songwriting at 16. I put up my first record at 18, of which was still about 800 copies under my parents' bed. And I'm glad I wanted to stay there. And then I went to undergrad. I mean, we're immigrants, right? So my parents told my brother and I, like, hey, you can do anything you want in life, just get a profession. He's 2 years older than me. We're both like, no. Like we're teenagers, nah, it doesn't sound fun. Well, this guy goes to medical school, my brother, and that's not going to happen. I finished undergrad in 2.5 years because I had a bunch of credits from high school. I was a good student because I had to be. That was expected of me, and I got through everything really fast because I have ADD. I know it's a shocker to everyone watching, and I can only focus for so long. So like I would just rush through anything because I could focus for like 10 to 15 minutes at a time, and I was done. But so he went to medical school. I finished undergrad in about 2.5 years. Ended up staying one more semester to get scholarship money, and I took 12 hours of independent study in blues guitar from a friend of mine who's a professor. So anyway, but that was just to get the money to keep the money coming in, and. I went to law school because I knew it was good advice from my parents, and they certainly meant well. And I knew that at the time I realized I wasn't going to be an artist. I love being a writer producer, but at the end of the day, I ended up managing a bunch of bands because I was pretty good at sort of business stuff. I got an undergrad in finance, and I was like, probably want to run a record label one day. And I know a lot of heads of record labels and entertainment businesses are lawyers, right? And so. So I went to law school, hated pretty much every second of it. But during law school, I had a studio in Gainesville. We worked with Sister Hazel back in the day. Then, and I still do a little bit of work with Stan Lynch, who's drummer from Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And so I got an awesome street education in music, and then I got a law degree. And the weirdest thing that I'll tell you about getting a law degree was I was the same guy the day before I went to law school and the day I started law school, but all of a sudden when I started, because I was constantly reaching out to A&R reps and trying to do music deals, and all of a sudden I went from being a kid who represented and worked with managed a bunch of garage bands to this kid in law school, and so everyone took my call. They're like, "Oh, wait a second, he's in law school. He's not just desperate. Let's talk to him." So to this day,
raised your cred.
Not practicing law is the best thing I've ever done with my law degree, because in every room I'm pretty much the only lawyer. If I worked at a law firm, I'd be in a room full of lawyers, right?
Yeah.
So positioning, I learned a lot from that, and then I needed to make money. I got married after my first semester of law school, which I have my 20-year anniversary coming up this July.
Nice. Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. She still likes me, I think. And I had my first son a week after I took the bar exam. So life's just been go, right? And so my business partner who had helped me, he's 30 years older than me, mentored me and helped me start the entertainment company. He's like, "Look, man, I've been in a lot of businesses. This is a hard business to make money." He's like, "Why don't you take what you do for musicians and bands and do it for business people, entrepreneurs, and professionals? You'll have fun, you'll make a lot of money, and you figure out what to do." So we did that, started the agency. It's been a great ride. But I did what any creative person does. The moment that starts making enough money to pay the bills, I got right back to creative stuff. So I just decided, I still write. I do a lot of songwriting in Nashville. I was actually just there on Monday interviewing Kenny Chesney. I do a lot of songwriting, have a bunch of stuff out on Spotify. I got a song coming out on Canadian radio in a few weeks. And then I just tried my hand at documentary films. I literally said, what music's really hard. What else could I try? Yeah, and I tried docs, and it seemed to work.
Well, film though. So you don't have a film background.
No.
So you went from guitar player, lawyer, or law degree.
Yeah. I'm licensed.
How do you go from writing music to even helping businesses? To me, making a film seems scary.
It's funny. I think the thing I learned, the thing I loved the most about filmmaking, I think when I'd gotten to that point, I had learned an awful lot about my shortcomings in music. And now, writing in Nashville, I don't take my guitar anymore. I started at 6. I'm turning 42 this weekend, right? These people can play me into a corner in 8 seconds. I have nothing to prove. If you're better than me, let's go with you, right? And so I had learned by the time I started making films, I'm starting to understand what my mentor Dan Sullivan calls your unique ability. What are you really good at, right? And you should probably not do much else. And I just said, I want to tell. I like story. I love people. I love great stories. Let me try this. And it's another story, but I Googled how to win an Emmy and followed the directions, and here we are. And so I basically just put together a team because I knew. Well, I could cut the deal. I can find the story. I think I can direct. I'm still not sure I even know what directing is, although I've directed a bunch of stuff. But it's just team building. It's and I hired people who I advice from a book called The Bezos Letters. It's how Jeff Bezos built Amazon. A friend of mine, Steve Anderson, wrote it, and basically he says Jeff Bezos never hires someone he does not admire, and I now do the same. And it could be an assistant, it could be a janitor. You should admire how much they really appreciate getting things the way you want them, or whatever it is, right? And so I hired a bunch of people who I admired, who they were up and comers. They had won no Emmys yet. Now we've won a bunch of Emmys together and stuff, but they were just really good people who were great at what they did, and I just let them do what they do. And so I did what I thought I could contribute, and we learned together, and it worked, and I think the only reason it really worked because I don't work with people who have egos. Everyone's there for the better of the team. We have a no a-hole rule. We'll get rid of them real fast. Even clients, like just not our game. And everyone, like me, I just had a call with my editor on the way over here. He's won a ton of Emmys with me over the years, and I don't know how he does what he does. I have no clue. I basically I have a crew who films everything with me. I hand him hard drives, and I'm like, do your thing. And it's like, sort of like, Leonardo da Vinci with marble. I'm like, just give me the best statue that's in the marble. Just give me the best doc that's on those drives. And I don't get in his way because he's amazing.
Now, are you directing him in any way? Because if it's your story, and maybe it's not your story, it might be somebody else's story you're telling. But you're the visionary here, right? You see the story going a certain way, or want it told a certain way. So. Or does he just get it, like, from the beginning?
He really just got it from the beginning, but I would say I really think that someone else coined it, that, like in my conversations and docs, that I bring heart and hope to every conversation, right? They said it, I liked it, so I stuck with it. And that's what we try to do. So I think there's a fabric to those interviews because I do them all, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a definitely, the threads are already being exposed. He weaves them really well. But I don't constrain him. I'm saying, like, hey, if you find a thread I didn't find, let me know and I'll go back and get it or whatever. But now I think he's done every one of my docs since 2015. And so we've done so many projects together, and he's a great human being that I would trust with my family, and we just think alike. Yeah. And we've worked enough. And look, we're working on a doc right now on human trafficking, an organization that rescues religious minorities, Christians and Yazidis, from ISIS in Iraq and the Middle East. So we went over and filmed. We were in Iraq filming the day the first COVID cases broke out in Iraq.
I thought you made a promise to your wife you weren't going to do that again.
I did. I didn't go back. That was original, but we're still editing, right? And so he sent it to me, and I said, man, this is really great, but there's a couple things that I remember getting that I think would really make it interesting. Like the main guy who took us over there, he's the guy who negotiated Captain Phillips off the boat. If you've seen the movie where Tom Hanks plays Captain Phillips, and we didn't really cover that thread. I'm like, I think that makes the guy more interesting. He's like, all right, let me go back. He's like, yeah, you're right. And so we collaborate a lot, but I probably have, honestly, 3 to 4 comments from every film he sends me. There's not much. It's just like, he gets it, so.
That's good. You're lucky.
I'm very lucky. Yes, very lucky. But I think he tells me he's lucky because I'm not trying to do his job. Like, you get a lot of people who want to put their fingerprints on things. It's like, well, why don't you do what you do, and how about you let me do what I do, and we'll both be better. And I think some people are just control freaks. I learned a long time ago, man, that the more other people are doing what they're supposed to be doing and I can just do what I want to do, like, again, unique ability, it's a concept. Like, what would you want to wake up and never want to retire from and just do one thing every day, and you'd be more motivated by it, you'd be providing more value to the world, and if you want to, you could charge for it. For me, you can tell I've done enough work and spent enough money figuring it out. It's pretty esoteric. I try to have impactful conversations that lead to produced outcomes. So if you asked me to do it on a podcast, I would love to have an impactful conversation with Clinton. If you said, will you write a book for me, Clinton? I'll say, I'm going to have an impactful conversation with a ghostwriter, and they're going to produce that outcome for you. Or behind the camera, in front of the camera, in the podcast. Really, I spend my day having conversations with great human beings. So it's like, why would I ever want to stop that?
So what are your days like now? So you're making this film, you're having to travel to places like Iraq or other places around the world. You've still got your law firm, or?
Yeah, we do a little bit of IP work for people. I don't do any of it, of course. We have some really good partners and of counsel, friends I went to law school with who are great at the work. I just maybe better at bringing it in, and so they do that. So we have that, but that's not real active. We do some stuff.
And you're doing your podcast, right? So, so what's a day like for you, or a week like for you? Are you?
This would be a typical week right now. So I'll tell you what I did this week. I got a text from Kenny Chesney last week. I'm doing Dick Vitale from ESPN's Life Story. They're very good friends. We were texting back and forth trying to find a time for an interview, and he said he'd be in Nashville this week, Monday or Tuesday. We ended up saying, hey, Monday's actually better. So me and one of my camera guys flew in Monday morning, landed about 8:30. We had some lunch, got set up. I showed him a few Nashville spots. Kenny came in, did the interview at 3 o'clock. We were on a 6:30 flight back home. So I left the house at 6 a.m., was back at the house by 10 o'clock to watch the second half of the college football championship. A lot of times I can't get home the same night. That's how it happens, but I could, so I did. Tuesday, I had some meetings with my team because I missed the Monday meetings. I had a pre-production meeting, and then my son had a soccer. Both of my boys, I have 3 kids, 2 boys, 16, 14. My daughter's 10. Both of my boys had soccer games in Lakeland yesterday. So I had some meetings throughout the day, and I got to Lakeland. I took some calls in the car. I worked out with my wife first. I don't start any meetings before 10:30, so we work out every day together. Start meetings at 10:30. I always take lunch off because I think you should. I think you should enjoy food. I do. And then I typically have my last meeting by 5. Yesterday, my parents live in the area, so we met at 4 o'clock. I had my last podcast at 3 o'clock. We met at 4, and at 4 o'clock, they rode with me to Lakeland. My wife took my daughter to dance. My parents went with me. We watched 2 soccer games. I got home at 10:10. This morning, I woke up and took one of my sons got in so late from the soccer game. He needed to sleep in a little bit. He's a junior and take an AP, so he did. So I took my son and his friend to school, actually ran 5 miles with a buddy of mine this morning. Then my wife and I walked a couple more, and I've been in podcasts and meetings and phone conversations till now. I drove over here to have this meeting with you. I was a little bit late. It's supposed to be 2 o'clock.
Worries.
I have calls at 4 and 4:30 on the way to Miami. I have a meeting tonight with a guy who's flying in from Ireland who wants to talk about doing some production work. I'll be back tomorrow for another podcast at 1 o'clock. And I pretty much end every day at 5 or 6 at the latest. And I don't start my working day really before 10:30. But people get emails from me all hours of day or night or whatever, the normal stuff. But and other than when COVID hit and I got shut down, like we all just got scared and couldn't do anything for a while, I'm getting back to normal, but prior to that, for probably 7 years before that, I don't travel. I'm not gone more than 7 nights a month. And if I miss dinner, that's a half a night. Like, that's our formula. Like, I had to put guardrails on my life because I love a good adventure. Like, I got a rule, 1 adventure a week. And if I don't get that adventure, I get antsy. So my wife kindly reminded me, like, hey, I love that you're adventuring with everybody else, but we sort of had children together, and we have a relationship here too, and thankfully it didn't get too far gone, and it's always been great. But she reminded me, and so we decided what would be fair, and 7 nights a month is enough that it's like a night and a half a week. It's enough to be disruptive, but I get to travel and do what I need to do. But like, I've been to Ibiza for a night and flew back. Like, I do all sorts of crazy flights, but I just sleep on an airplane. I'm not working. I'm not flying. I'm just sleeping, right? So anyway, that's a typical week. So I'm always I get a lot of adventure, but I'm home a lot, and I go to every game, I go to every dance thing. I miss certain things. I never miss a birthday, mine or theirs. I never miss any sort of championship games, and I never miss first day of school, never miss last day of school. Like, we have a system, right?
Yeah.
And it's awesome, man. It's so much fun, and I think were it not for having that, I would say my schedule is not for everybody, but having that level of balance is just super helpful.
Now, I agree. I've got a good amount of balance in my life too, and I think it kind of goes back to the team, right?
Yep.
So you've got these successful businesses, and it's a trade-off. So you can make a little more money if you had a little less people, but
right.
But there's sacrifices you have to make.
Yep, and understanding that they're human beings too.
Yeah.
They want time off. They want time with their families.
Absolutely.
They want, which is. It's just sometimes it's hard to figure out.
Yeah. So it sounds like what I'm hearing is what you're getting energy from, what you're doing daily. As far as your work is your podcast and your filmmaking.
Yep.
So talking to Kenny Chesney or a potential new client from Ireland, but that's kind of your day to day.
Yeah,
like, kind of the creative. Working because you're the guy doing the interviews.
So I'm working with my teams to make sure I have what I need for my interviews, because I don't like preparing, so I outsource the preparation too. And we've got a system for that, and I'm happy to cover that as well. But like,
I don't like doing that either.
I don't
had
do it.
Somebody help me with this one.
I don't do it. I mean, it's great. The way I do it is I tell them who I'm interviewing. I have a couple writers. My writer Katie does most of it. She's amazing, and she listens to all the podcasts they've been on. She reads the books or figures out what she needs to. And the way I do it, I say, give me an article like summarize it all into like as if they were being featured on the cover of People magazine, and then she gives me like a 2,000-word article. I read it like 15 minutes before the interview, and I have every bit of context I need to have a conversation. I can go if they get excited, their eyes light up, and they want to go somewhere, but I always have somewhere to come back to. So it really allows, to use a songwriting term, a friend of mine a long time ago told me, Nick, the goal as a songwriter, I know you've got ideas, but the goal is to write the best song in the room today. Because Clinton has ideas, and you're all here because you've got great ideas. Don't be ego-driven. Just write the best song in the room today. Well, all I try to do is try to have the best conversation in the room that day. So like obviously I get the easy part of this. I don't have to prepare for this. We're just going to talk about what's on my mind and what's on your mind. But so I outsource that preparation. But so my entire day really is spent having conversations. That's really all I do. I mean, I read emails, respond to emails, but like I'm having conversations all day long.
Yeah. Awesome. So, you've worked with some pretty amazing people, and I have to wonder, and I would imagine other people wonder too, like, how does that happen? So is it the work? Is it networking? Is it connections? So, I mean, so the people you're working with today obviously are, maybe, just for lack of a better description, much more high profile in the public eye than maybe what you were doing 15 years ago, right? So how did that happen?
So a couple things. Yes, they definitely are now. I have more high profile people than before, but also part of the thing I love is telling stories people you have no idea who they are and all that, right? Like in a hut in Iraq, right? So that's interesting and fascinating, and it's human. I never expected. Film has, at least the films I make, documentaries, have this really, for me at least, unexpected unfair advantage. And the unfair advantage is when you make quality films, and I can proudly say that because it's not about me. My team is the best in the world. Like, I could screw it up, they could still make a great film. They make great films despite me, we'll put it that way. And so, and when you do work that is impactful and it's well done, it has heart to it. I don't do any like hit pieces. I'm not trying to get in. Like, I just don't. I mean, some people deserve it, right? But it's just I don't want to spend my life doing that. I don't want to spend my life in that negative space. They really appreciate it. And then when they like the way you have represented them or their story, whatever. First of all, like Dick Vitale, I met him doing Rudy. So you meet, like, the network's insane.
Right.
So when I'm doing Rudy's documentary, he's like, you got to interview Dickie V. So I interview Dickie V, and then all of a sudden, like, man, who's told your story? He's like, no, I'm like, let me tell your story. And then all of a sudden, so for Dickie V, man, I'm interviewing. I just interviewed Kenny Chesney. I've got Shaq and Barkley coming up. I got LeBron James. I got who's coming up. I've got Coach Calipari. I've got Coach K. I've got and then all of a sudden I get a text. It's me, Charles Barkley, Shaq, and Dickie V. I'm like, did I just make the Mount Rushmore of the NBA? Like, what happened? But like all of a sudden, when people feel like you're professional at what you do, like, I'm not going to fanboy anity. Like, you're professional at what you do, and you're there to do a job. You're just in all of a sudden. And I honestly, to be dead honest, I really, for the first time in my life, really felt that and sort of recognized it like about a month ago. Like, oh, I guess I'm in, because I spent my whole life on the outside of trying to get backstage, right? Like we all do. But now all of a sudden I don't know if it's a Zig Ziglar quote. I think he gets credited the most for it. And people, I think, mistakenly use it sometimes, but when you help enough other people get what they want, you get what you want. And so all I've really done is serve other people well, and so they become friends and supporters and part of my, I hate the term networking, but part of my network. And so now if I have a friend the other day ask me, hey man, could you help me get anything for like this charity auction? Well, like, yeah, I probably can. Like, let me text a couple people, see who I can get. And I don't get mad if they can't do it. People are busy. I don't get mad if they don't respond. People are busy. They got other things going on. They might have seen it and been in the middle of shooting a scene and forgot, like, whatever. But yeah, it's just being kind and doing what you say you're going to do. And the unfair advantage is everyone wants to introduce you to their really impressive friends, not their friends in jail. It's like, hey, have you met my friend the governor? I'm like, well, no, I haven't. So like, and when you're doing a project on someone like Dickie V, he wants all the biggest names that he knows in his film. So all of a sudden, it's just this cascading thing of big names. And then, if you do your job well, you start forging relationships with those people, and they're like, oh, what, we should call that guy Nick. Like, I have a rule with my crew, like, when we come into someone's home, particularly, even an office, like, we ask, well, first of all, you better bring your manners. Don't dress like you're homeless. Most crews dress like they're homeless. We don't have to be in a uniform, but, like, let's look professional. And if you're going to move something, ask first. If you move it, make sure you move it back and ask, is this in the right place? But most film crews are sort of have this God complex because they're really taught that the most important thing is the shot and what we're getting. And it is. But so they shirk everything else. They just don't even think. So they dress homeless. They're practically rude to people. They leave it like, the Tasmanian devil just came through. And so now we get a lot of people asking, hey, could you get Nick's crew back here? Because, the lady of the house, let's say, is like, well, there's people who came in that I don't ever want them back again because they weren't at all like Nick's crew. So it's just like, the 3 rules of business: do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
Say please and thank you. Show up on time. You'll get a lot of business. And so I feel like we do that pretty well.
Nice. So I guess, what I got out of that too is it's much like any business. I mean, you're working with people. I guess we all do really. Right. But in our business, our clients, it's building blocks, right? So, when this business began over 30 years ago, it built, right? And our reputation built. So that's what I'm getting out of it. Whether you're working with a real high profile celebrity, but it's building blocks, and you've earned this reputation, and now people reach out to you.
Yeah, you earn a reputation for that. You're reliable. That they can count on you and trust you because, and I've seen it now too. Because most people would be like, so let's just say you got a famous person coming in here. I mean, everyone that if depending on how famous they're, like, hey, can I come? That's like it's a normal response, right? I'm not knocking anybody for that.
I did have somebody that wanted to come and meet you, but he has the flu.
Oh, all right. Well, next time. That'll be a first. So I'll take it. I'll come meet them. How about that? I'm a fan of them now.
He's also doing some filmmaking and music, and I think you guys would just get along well.
We'll do lunch, drinks, whatever. Yeah. That's great. Thank you. So when you do. When you do that, it's a natural thing. They're celebrities, and most people, they're usually, like, I don't work with celebrities. I work with what I call celebrity experts. They're so good at what they do, the world can't ignore them. And that could be a musician, that could be a whatever.
Right.
It's not just like I'm famous because I'm hot or something. I don't know, whatever. It's just not my deal.
Yeah.
And so what I've realized, though, is like when I go into those situations now that I'm in control of those situations, you really realize, like, oh, this is, while I love all my friends and family, I wouldn't bring most people to this situation because it would offset the rapport I have that I'm trying to build. So it's just learning how to manage those relationships.
Yeah.
Right. And once you do that and people realize that, okay, he gets it, we're good,
Yeah. Maybe it's a thing that comes with age, but it's just kind of common sense.
It is, but I think it's also proving the fact that, like, you're reliable and professional, and you're going to do a good job. And like, what I was going to lead to there is, like, if someone asks me for something, like, I want to refer them somebody who makes me look great, right? So ideally, if you want to grow your business, talk about business, like, be the person that, like, people can't wait to refer. Like, oh, they're going to think I'm a rock star because I know him.
Yeah. I'm
going to bring him in. Like, I'm going to a meeting this afternoon in Miami. Friend of mine from Sarasota is like, this guy's looking for a chief marketing officer who is a really good storyteller. And I sort of told him that's really not, what do you really want? He really wants some, like, film type stuff. He's like, well, hey, how about this? What if I brought in my friend Nick, and he built up my resume, and what if we just let him tell your story, and then I go hire you as CMO? And the guy's like, you could get him to come, So, but like, it was really great because we've got a great relationship. He knows I'll deliver for him, so I'm driving out of Miami to go have dinner with these guys because he knows, and I'll get business from it. And whether I do or not, that's just the way it works sometimes. But he was proud to be able to refer me and bring me in on the deal, and that's what you want to be.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. This was in a previous podcast, but somebody accused me of being a connector.
Yeah.
But I love it. So if when I'll meet somebody that I think would click with you, and I'll reach out and say, hey, you need to meet this person, or just because we have this other term that I use and created called AV Karma. So it's our industry thing. Yeah. So when people reach out to me that want to work with us, and if for some reason it's not a good fit, and in our line of business, that happens fairly often because of conflicts. But I'm happy to refer them to all my competitors, and I'm friends with all my competitors, and I think it's just good. And then one day it maybe it'll come back, but
it does.
So I think That makes sense.
When you do, in those cases, it's funny. It's like that's just in a lot of it's just doing the right thing.
Yes.
And it will burn you every now and then because someone is not in it for the right reasons. But
Right.
it's funny. Like I'm a huge 40 Gators fan. My wife is the biggest, probably 40 Gators fan maybe in the world. Like crazy. Born in Gainesville, only missed a handful of home games. I had to go to a wedding one time because she didn't commit. I thought she was coming to the wedding with me. I had to go to the wedding. She went to the game. Like, you know, so anyway, just giving her due. And it's like, you know, as I'm traveling around, you know, doing this documentary, and I'm interviewing a bunch of college basketball coaches. Now, this again, I'm not that smart. Some things it takes me a long time to figure out. I should have learned this like as a kid, but you forget sometimes. But it's just like, oh, this is just a coach doing his job. He's hired by this college. And this is just a bunch of kids, like right. You know, even though they're at a school that I hate or whatever, right? Right. It's just literally, and the same thing I'm sure you could say for people who work for your competitors. It's just a guy or a woman like you trying to feed their family, do the right thing,
absolutely.
Right? And
absolutely.
You get some people in there who aren't like that for the most part.
Yeah.
We're all just trying to make life better for those around us.
And I'm nice to everybody and I get along with everybody, right? But
Yep.
but if you always do the right thing, it works out, right? It really
Absolutely.
does. Yeah, I think that's just a good rule of thumb for anything. So you know, when I don't know if it was when we last spoke, but one of the things that stood out to me in one of our conversations when we reconnected was about, you know, you mentioned the word heart, but about, you know, some of your work, like the Toussaint operation.
Yep.
Operation Toussaint.
Yep.
Like that film, you know, wasn't just about making a film, it's about making a difference, right?
Yeah,
So is that a big focus? I mean, it sounds like you're going, you know, the Iraq, you're doing it all over again?
Yeah, so I did it. I'm not doing it again, but yes,
okay.
I
so that was that before, by the way, you made the...
Toussaint was first, and then I did Iraq after that.
And when was that? Just
February of 2020 was Iraq.
Okay.
So like right as COVID was breaking.
Right, yeah.
And so, so look, I'm spiritually, I'm a Christian. I believe, you know, to whom much is given, much is expected. And I think that's, whether you believe, you know, have my faith background or not, I think it's just a good thing to think.
Absolutely.
Good way to think. And I really I've always tried to just say, okay, you know, from my framework, you do it how you want. Hey, God, you put me in this position. Like, what do you want me to do? And so I'm really sort of a big idiot who just keeps walking through the doors he opens, right? But when people come to me with, you can't take on everything. But when people come to you with, you know, with opportunities that that strike a chord, you go. And I've never been a person to like let money get in the way of anything. It's like, all right, was that something I'm supposed to do? If it is, the resources will come. Mm-hmm. And I was brought in by a friend. And by the way, I never name drop, but I like to give people credit where credit is due. So a guy named Russell Brunson, huge in the marketing world. He called me out of the blue one day and he's like, hey man, I'm working with this child sex trafficking organization, and I was trying to figure out how I could make a big difference for him. And he's like, man, I was praying about it, and God just gave me your name. He's like, oh man, maybe Nick would help with this. And he's like, so would you ever make a documentary about, you know? I'm like, I never thought about that, but like, I mean, if I feel like if I wasn't willing to spread light on that and the gifts I've been given, like, that probably wouldn't end up good for me. Talk about karma, it wouldn't be very good for me.
Exactly.
And so I'm like, yeah, let's talk about it. And so little I know, you know, 45 days later, I'm in a raid in Haiti, and so I just kept going.
Went that quick.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We made that doc in like 60 days almost, because he called me, I believe, right about October, and he was trying to get it done to raise a bunch of money at his event, which was, if I'm not mistaken, was in February of, well, so here, look, I got this that we got from the raid. The raid was January of 2018. I got the first call right before Halloween of 2017. So yeah, so like it was end of October, so November, December, so middle of January, and then we had to have the doc ready to go by middle of February, and he raised $1 million in 2 days with it. But it was like, you got to be able to get, it's like, all right, we'll try. I've never done this, but we'll try. So, but it just kept going where the story went. But I mean, obviously you can't see something like that, whether it's on screen or in person, and not be changed somehow. Yeah. And it's I now am on my fourth doc on trafficking. We did the one in Haiti. We did one in Colombia where the organization had filmed everything of the raids, and we went back and retold the story, and that hit some film festivals, did really well, and now that's about to come out, called Triple Take. It's about 3 raids at the same time in Colombia in different cities. Then there is another one we made for the Nazarene Fund. It's actually Glenn Beck started the organization, and I'm not into politics at all. I don't even know what most people stand. This is not my thing. Glenn Beck's a great human being from my interactions with him, and so we went over and told that story. And then I started talking about trafficking and learning so much about it, where people just kept saying, like, "Oh my gosh, that's so crazy that's happening in Haiti or Colombia or Iraq," and I literally said the words, "You don't understand, it's happening right here," so many times that I'm like, okay, I'm making a film called It's Happening Right Here. And so I did. That's at film festivals right now, and that's all about trafficking in America and how, I mean, to put it bluntly, kids from every neighborhood and every creed, race, color, and socioeconomic status are being trafficked physically or digitally, just through being forced to do things against their will and videotape it, either by themselves or with other people, and it's being sold, or they're being blackmailed online because they fell for it when some person they found really attractive sort of courted them and started trading nude pictures with them, and then they find out that that's not really that person. It's a 47-year-old man in Iowa, and now that I have naked pictures of you, here's what you're going to do. I'm going to put them on the internet. I'm going to send them to your parents. I'm going to send them to everyone at your school. I'm going to post them up. I'm going to blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden, a kid, which is typically what it is, I mean, but even an adult, like, they have no idea what to do next, because now they feel really stupid, and in most cases they don't feel like they could go talk to their parent or an adult, so they make hundreds if not thousands of really bad decisions after that because they're being blackmailed. And so the film really sort of covers the different ways that happens through Instagram, TikTok, Fortnite, Roblox. I mean, anywhere 2 or more
Discord.
are gathered, there shall be trafficking. So
that's nuts.
It is not. So I try to do things like that because I think it's the right thing to do. And I'm just interested. I'm doing a doc on reading right now, which I was brought into, and I have no idea.
Reading?
I had no idea so there's illiteracy and there's what we call subliteracy, which is sort of like food insecurity. Like you're not reading the level you should be. I'm not going to get the stats exactly right because I haven't looked at them the last couple of weeks. I'm doing like 8 things, but it's close to this. The entire United States of America, since we have been measuring reading proficiency of kids in school, we have never scored higher than, I believe it's 43 or 46% passing rate, basically, of proficiency. More than half of the country cannot read correctly, and you really don't know it because everyone hides it. And so at the lowest levels, it ends up in incarceration and else, because if you can't read, you can't get a license, you can't work a job, you can't do pretty much anything, right? And the subliteracy levels of, like, they, for many reasons which are debatable, but there's good arguments on both sides, like keep matriculating kids up so they just graduate, but they really are, they're 18, they're reading at a 2nd or 3rd grade level, or they're dyslexic, and what, I mean, it's a mess, dude. Like, so I was brought into it by this guy who is now in his 80s, but he was a school teacher in California for 13 years, and he could not read. And it's like, wait, can't be true. And so Oprah did a story on him. He was in Chicken Soup for the Soul, and I'm like, wait, tell me more. And as it turns out, there's just there's more than 50% of our students are falling through the cracks. And you really don't know about it because most people don't want to talk about it if their kid is struggling, or if you were struggling, you wouldn't. It's not something you talk about. So my mind was blown. I'm like, all right, I got to help spread this word because there's solutions. A lot of people think it's conspiracy or politics, I'm like, look, I got no dog in this hunt other than that. I want kids who feel they're dumb because this isn't working for them. They know there's other solutions. I want adults who never learned to read, we filmed a guy who, as he learned to read in 1 week, he's 63, didn't know how to read, and he was an executive, and just saw the weight lifted from his face and his whole life change. So I want adults to know it's never too late, and you're not dumb, your brain is not broken. And the third one is, I want people in lower socioeconomic situations, is typically people of color. They get screwed the most because typically those school districts don't have any money, and they don't, and just some familiar situations don't allow for extra tutoring or money to do it. So, and I want to help create awareness so they can get the resources. I'm not here to blame anybody, but we can do a lot better job.
So how did this story come to you then? So did he find you, or did you find him?
So I did a documentary on my friend Jack Canfield. Jack wrote all the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. 500 million sold around the world, right?
That's,
incredible story.
Yeah,
Never will happen again, I'm pretty sure. And so I get an email from this guy, John Corcoran, and said, hey, I'm friends with Jack Canfield. I love what you did for him. I told him I wanted to share my story in a bigger, more impactful way, and he said, I should reach out to you.
Nick.
Here's a video when I was on Oprah. Here's the whatever. I watched it. I emailed back and said, man, that's a really cool story. I just don't know that it's like your story's been told. I don't know if it's big enough for like a doc. And sometimes sometimes you don't see it. Sometimes you're super busy. Sometimes you just want to make sure someone on the other side of the line has enough fight, because if we're doing this, it's a battle. Like you're working closely for a year, 2 years. Like you want to make sure it's not like a passing interest, because I'm going to spend my life doing it, right?
Right.
And it was really that I just wasn't sure, and I was busy, and I didn't know where funding would come from. I didn't know him at all. And he's like, if you just give me like 30 minutes and let me share with you, I think you're going to see the story's way bigger than you think. And so like, now he's pitching me. Great. The guy's got a little tenacity to him.
Yeah.
He's of Irish descent. He's a fighter for this cause for the last like 40 years. And so I got on the phone and I'm like, wait, you mean to tell me that I could go look in my own school district in an affluent area right now? He's like, go look at it.
Go look.
Failing. I'm like, and I looked at him like, and so I ended up deciding to do the doc. We put out a press release about it, and I got like the two main comments that stuck out to me. My uncle actually said, "Oh boy, Nick, they're coming for you now. Like you are gonna get so much hate mail." So I'm like, I said to my uncle, I'm like, look, that's possible, but like I would totally expect that if I approach this story with blame and shame and vitriol, but I'm not. I'm approaching it from like, hey, what's happened to get us here, and what can we do better? Like that's really, and. So that was number one. Number two, a friend of my son's at school sent me a private message and said, hey, if you find anything that works, let me know, because we've been struggling for a long time and cannot figure it out. And as I go through these things, like it's sort of as I said, I have ADD. One of my sons has ADHD, and when you are dealing with something that you don't, especially a child, and you don't know how to fix it, it doesn't matter if it lasts 2 days or 2 years. It feels like hell the whole time. Yeah. And as soon as I saw multiple people, like this guy is 63 years old, comes and learns how to read in a week, and his whole life changes. I'm like, this is not a life sentence. So like I have to tell this story, and it's been mind blowing just to see what happens in it. Yeah.
So I just watched. Do you watch CBS Sunday Morning?
I don't.
It's a great show. Probably don't have time.
There's always time.
That's a gre't show, but it's usually a feel good show, but they have really interesting stories. And Sydney, oh my gosh, Poitier. Did you know he couldn't read?
I saw that recently. People now sort of send me all the reading stuff, right? So a lady, I think it was met with him every day, or a man every day for a while?
I think it was a man. So he worked in a restaurant. I think he was a dishwasher.
Okay.
And he's an immigrant as well, right? From, I forget, one of the islands.
Okay.
Probably not far from you.
Yeah, probably not.
But yeah, immigrated and worked. He worked when he grew up. He worked in a restaurant as a dishwasher, and somebody made a comment about something in the newspaper, and he said, "Well, I can't read it." And that person every day, every night after work, after the restaurant was closed, would sit with him and teach him to read.
I mean, that's humanity, right? Like that's my favorite thing on earth. It's like at the end of the day, you're a human being, I'm a human being. Let's just talk about it. Like, how can I help you? And so, to me, the richest experiences of my life have always, and especially I tell anyone, if you don't know what to do next, just serve somebody.
Yeah.
You'll be shocked at the opportunity that comes your way, because you can't be creative in a state of scarcity. But when you open your mind to, like, first of all, it's not about me anymore. Like, if you hyper focus on yourself, you never solve anything. Mm-hmm. When you've realized it's not about you, there's a world that's going to live and breathe even after you die. Mm-hmm. They're going to be sad for a little bit. It might be one person, might be nobody, might be millions. Who cares? Mm-hmm. But you're gone. It doesn't matter. But man, if you just find someone to serve, like, opportunity, abundance, creativity just like shows up. So those are the stories I love, and why I love telling stories, because there's way more of that going on in the world than anyone knows. Because it's not publicized.
Yeah.
It's just not, right?
And people typically don't talk about it, right?
Absolutely.
So on another note, if you want to be introduced, I could introduce you to a friend of mine named Julia Young, who runs a not-for-profit called Page 15, which is an organization dedicated to helping underprivileged kids get the tools and resources they need to read.
Anyone doing that, I'd love to meet.
Yeah.
I always say at this point, who knows what happens? So yes, please.
And then weird coincidence too. Very much into music.
Yeah. And
their big fundraiser they just did. I was there. They do it. Well, I think they had to take a couple of years off because of COVID. They just did it late last year. It's called Mixtape, and they it's a concert.
Well, I like all those things.
Yeah. So there's definitely some synergy there, and they're super good people. Her and her husband.
Cool. Yeah, please.
Yeah. So so what's next for you? So I mean, you're gonna keep making films, but like, what's is there anything sort of?
There's a few. I mean, so the agency that we have, I love serving the clients we serve. I just turned over the day-to-day to people who are better than me at it. So we'll continue to do that and help entrepreneurs, professionals find those opportunities to share their story, because literally there are amazing people, whether they ever will make it to to Nobel Peace Prize status or not. There's amazing people in every community who sometimes they're just really great dentists, and they also do this. But like, everyone has a story to share, and I love helping those people share their stories so they can help more people. And then music, I just can't quit. It's just the drug of choice. So I'll continue to do that. I love doing that. It's interesting. Forever, I really shied away from the idea of writing any music for my documentaries because I thought it could be corny. And one of my friends was like, "You're an idiot." It's like, so I co-wrote with a couple amazingly talented Grammy-nominated buddies. I mean, I've been doing it so long now. My friends are great. And we wrote a song for my documentary about Folds of Honor, who's given over $100 million in scholarships to the families of fallen soldiers. And of course, I wrote it with guys who are super talented, so the song came out great. And Lee Brice just cut that for us. We have a song in our new human trafficking movie we're working on getting cut. We just wrote a song for the Dick Vitale documentary that has got ESPN loves it. Like music is not, and hopefully now I can do more of it together. And then filmmaking, I don't know, like I'm honing in more and more. Like, I definitely now have quite a bit of experience doing the type of film I make. I'm really mostly interested in biographies. I'm just fascinated by people and some humanitarian stuff. When it gets more into activism, social justice, just things that I believe in, but I'm not fascinated by. I'm going to bring in other people to direct those sorts of things, but I still want to be able to. I still want to have the opportunity to produce those things and help put them together, help make sure they happen and happen the right way. So I'm building a brand now called Astonish Entertainment. Astonish will be my. It's based on a Mark Twain quote, and it is do right always, it will gratify some and astonish the rest. And my designer actually took Mark Twain's handwriting from different letters he'd written and put together the word astonish. It's pretty cool.
That's cool.
So that's going to be that's where my life's work from here on out is going to happen. And there's music under that, there's film under that. We've got some based on a true story rights to some life stories, and we'll probably do some feature film work with. So I'm just taking the next step, but I'm trying to make sure that I don't get lost in anything. I'm really just like staying within my unique ability, because that's what serves me and everyone else best. I'm going to continue to have the best conversations I can have every day, and try to figure out what's the most helpful outcome we could produce that would inspire other people, raise money, teach people, show them there's hope, whatever that is, and just do that. And don't get too caught up. Like, I'm a big dreamer, of course, but don't get too caught up in like, oh, I have to do it this way. Because if I did that, I never would have started this agency, and that agency would never have given me the freedom to. Because basically, up to this point, every film I've made. The films I've made that I wanted to make, other than like clients hiring me to make films, like. No one else like just wrote me a check to make it. Like, hey, make this movie. Like, we're starting to get there. We're having some conversations about Dickie V and some other things where there's like some people who are like, hey, we want this film, and that's great. But I was always made the film because I wanted to make it, and I thought the message was important, and I wanted to make it the way I wanted to make it. And I didn't want someone else telling me how I need to add some negativity and some drama and some like whatever if it wasn't needed. And so I've been really sort of a spoiled brat when it comes to I just made the films I wanted to make. And I had a lot of friends who were like, yeah, we'll help you with that. No problem. We'll help fund it. We'll help do it, whatever. And so now I'm turning 42, and I got the rest of my life to do this. So I'm just going to figure out how to do it, but I'm not going to try to pigeonhole myself too much where I would not know, where I would miss a great opportunity because I didn't know to look for it.
Yeah. Yeah. So where should people go to find your work? Is it nicknanton.com, or do you have?
Yeah, that's a great place to start. We've got a ton of stuff on Amazon, got quite a bit on YouTube.
Yes.
Depending on the time frame you watch this, sometimes we have stuff on Netflix. I'm sure sometimes we'll have some stuff coming up on Hulu and all the others. But nicknanton.com, and then follow me on Instagram at Nick Nanton. You'll know what I'm doing for the most part. And if I can be of help to anybody, feel free to reach out. I can't do everything, but I'm happy to connect. I'm happy to share. I'm happy to connect people with other people. I think that's. I hate the term self-made. I don't believe in it. I believe that we're all where we're at because whether you recognize it or saw it or not, whether it's in front of you or in a back room, some people have been helping you your whole life. Mm-hmm. And so I would never be where I'm in if there weren't enough people who are like, you know what? Yeah, I'll connect you. I'll make that. I'll help you. So I'm always happy to try to do that for other people.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you all for joining us today and listening. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Sound Connections, and tune in next time.